Hi, Jenna.
Hi, Arooj.
How are you?
Good morning. Good evening for you.
Morning for you, yeah.
How are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I'm wonderful.
You look so
Um,
nice and fresh for a morning.
I what?
You look so nice and fresh this morning.
Oh, thank you. Normally my day doesn't get started quite this way, but it's a special day. Um, I am so excited. So excited to have you on here and to chat. I'm so looking forward to chatting with you.
Oh,
This is amazing. Okay, I'm going to spend a minute to just get everyone in. And good morning, Susan from Canada.
oh wow.
All right, so our waiting room is filling up, and I'm going to spend a moment to admit everyone,
Cool.
and then we'll get started. I'm always learning something. I'm always learning new ways to kind of manage these Zoom meetings. And there's got to be a better way than having to go through the whole waiting room process. So that'll be my next
You know, on the settings, you can, because I've done it a couple of times, on the settings, you can put something where you don't need a meeting room that they can just join. That
yes,
might be quite useful for you.
I'm gonna
Yeah.
figure it out
Yeah,
for the
it's
next one.
setting somewhere.
Thank you everyone for joining us this morning, wherever you are in the world. For those of you that are Pacific Standard Time, it's early morning, so good morning and welcome. Give me one more half a minute and I'm going to hit record and get our official meeting started. All right. So, hello and welcome to Arooj. She is here to join us in this beautiful conversation today around this incredible ceremony of closing the bones, which you may or may not be too familiar with. I have been practicing as a postpartum doula, specializing in Ayurvedic care, which is also an Eastern tradition or Eastern approach. And closing the bone ceremony is pretty new to me. It hasn't been, I haven't been exposed to it too much. So I know that everything that she's going to share today is going to just be such rich information. And I'm looking forward to learning and just excited to have each of you here on board with us. So Arooj is a mother of two. She's based in the UK. She's a postpartum doula and she's also a birth doula. She integrates approaches of both Western and Eastern traditions into her healing practices. She's a qualified Ayurvedic, Moroccan, and traditional doula, and she's spent the last 3 years supporting and empowering mothers through healing and taking control of the birthing process and journey. So while she fills us in and continues and takes off on the conversation and fills us in a little bit more about herself and kind of what led her into this offering and this specialization of using closing the bones, I would love to hear from you guys over in the chat box. So go ahead and enter your name and where you're based and what has brought you to this conversation today. Meanwhile, Arooj, fill us in if I left anything out. That was a very brief introduction. So, so
Really well.
welcome.
7 a.m. your time, you did really well. So yeah, as Jenna said, my name's Arooj. I have two children. I have my hands full with a 2.5-year-old and a just turned 1-year-old boy. I have been doing this work for the past 3 years, but because of pregnancies and having children, it's been very on and off for me. So I'm also a herbalist in training, so I'm currently finishing off my clinical herbalism degree. I was trained by Jenna to be an Ayurvedic postpartum care doula, so she's also my teacher. But yeah, I have, like Jenna said, I've integrated Moroccan traditions, I actually went out to Morocco to learn this. It was something that I could learn online, like as in any course, but I just felt like, no, I really need to go there in person and see what this is about. So I went, I came back, I qualified, and then I did my birth doula in. So now I have pre-birth courses that I help, like Jenna said, help pregnant women know their choices, know what sort of informed decisions they can make, know their rights, know the science behind birth and all things birth. And I also do postpartum. So I'm a postpartum doula. I offer holistic treatments to help you heal after birth. One of them is closing the bones, that obviously we're going to discuss today. So I'm excited. Yeah.
Amazing. Thank you. So I'm just glancing over at the chat. We have Susan, who's from London, Canada. I don't know much about this ritual, but I'm impressed that you can find it in so many countries. Yes, I as well. I mean, this is I'm based in Los Angeles, Santa Monica, for those of you that that are new to these monthly Zoom conversations with me. I'm based in Los Angeles, and there's a lot of, there's literally everything you could think of is accessible here, which is really incredible. Closing the bones, however, I don't know of too many practitioners or too many women that have experienced it. So yes, it's picking up, it's growing steadily, and there's so much for us to learn about it. So go ahead and glance at, welcome everyone. Dana, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing it correctly, is in Reno, Nevada. So yay, you're here with me at the 7 a.m. This is such a lovely way to wake up and start the day. And you too, Eileen, hello from Irvine. It's lovely to see everybody. So I am, just to introduce myself again, I'm an Ayurvedic practitioner. I also have been specializing in Ayurvedic postnatal treatment with women. I am co-founder of Ayurvedic Mamas, an incredible platform that empowers and educates women through birth and also in supporting others through birth. So check out Ayurvedic Mamas if you're interested. Also, Arooj, I would love for you to share at some point some information for how our listeners today can get more information from you. So maybe a website or anything at all that you'd like to offer them or share with them. And you can feel free to throw that in at any point. I'm a mother of two, and again, I'm based in in Santa Monica. My little ones are also young. I have a 4-year-old and a 1-year-old, so my hands are full, and I know that I know that feeling well. Today, we're going to take a look at this incredible practice, this incredible ceremony. And I just want to kind of launch it off with you, Arooj, explaining kind of just an overview of what closing the bones looks like. And, that might include what time in the postpartum period it might be integrated or used. And just kind of an overview and a storyline so as to kind of orient us around this practice and how it's shared with women.
Yeah, sure. So when I went to Morocco to learn a little bit about several Moroccan postpartum traditions that there is, one of them is closing the bones. And I went at 7 months postpartum. I think 7.5 months postpartum I went. And traditionally, it is something that is done quite a lot in Morocco and Mexico. So some of you might have heard some Mexican traditions around closing the bones. It is getting quite popular around the world, as Jenna said. It is picking up. I'm hearing quite a lot about, I've heard about closing the bones, but I'm not sure what it is. So closing the bones is an ancient traditional practice done several years ago on our ancestors, on our mums, where the mom during her first 42 days, ideally, when she has just given birth. In Morocco, it's in the first 42 days, but Moroccans, they recommend that you have closing the bones ceremonies done, let's say 3 in the first week. So it's quite a lot in the first week, and it's just to help you heal as quickly as you can. There isn't no rush, obviously, because you've got your 42 days of rest. But yeah, so this is practiced quite well around the world. In your first 42 days is ideal. I offer it to moms in their first year, because it takes up to a year for a mom's body to fully heal. From what I've learned from the Moroccan traditional practice side of things, closing the bones is a practice where the mom is, it's kind of basically a ceremony where the mom is, how do I put it? She is, I don't know how to put it without getting a bit teary, because it's a very emotional ceremony, but it's very physical as well. It's very hands-on. Like, for example, this is a kurzia. This is a wool material. It's a traditional wool material from Morocco. I cannot find it anywhere in the UK. Nothing even close to it. And this is something that we use to bind the mom head to toe. This is to help close all her joints, help her feel warm, have her feel like all her loose ligaments that she might feel during her postpartum are kind of getting put back together again. So we kind of help support that natural healing process that she's going through. And it's absolutely amazing. It's something that I was lucky enough to have done when I was 7 months postpartum in Morocco, and I was in tears at the end of it, and I was only laying down. I was laying down, and the midwives were binding me head to toe. It takes about 2 hours, I would say.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's quite a lengthy time. And you'll notice that the mom will release trauma. So she'll release anything about her birth that she wasn't happy with, or she'll release happiness. She'll just be releasing all that amazing, I call it amazing because it's amazing how she just suddenly, all that comes out. Trauma or any happiness or anything that she wants to share with you that she's not ever shared with anyone, you'll find that they usually share with you during that closing the bone ceremony. And it's a very emotional practice. It's very spiritual, I would say, as well. And it's ancestrally done, but it's unfortunate that it's been lost, down the line. But here we are, some of us are reviving it. So I'm one of the Moroccan trained ones, and I've got friends that are Mexican trained. So that's the two that I know of so far. I don't know of any other closing the bones practitioners in different countries just yet, but it's just amazing. It really is.
Beautiful.
Yeah. Hit me with questions, Jenna, because I'm getting lost in it. It's just so amazing, honestly.
Well, and everything that you share today is invaluable. So don't be worried about getting lost in it, because truly everything that you share is going to be like just so rich for us. And it's when you bring up that it's taught in kind of different methods around the world, for example, Morocco versus Mexico, it's the same as the first 42 days method, right? Which is the Ayurvedic approach. Yeah. I mean, the Ayurvedic approach that I base my practices in.
Yeah.
It's very similar. Here in Los Angeles, there's a lot of, again, like there's just different practices that are available here. And I have been exposed to different Brazilian practices, Mexican practices, and they're all, and now the Moroccan practices through you. And they all hold kind of at the same core or the same basis, like this essence of holding a woman, creating very sacred, safe space surrounding her so that she can move through the processing following birth. And it has its physical benefits. Absolutely. You can, talk about the physiology of what our bodies go through following birth. And, just what is needed through this huge transition that we go through in life of stepping into motherhood through the very early days following an experience such as giving birth. And in addition to that, it's also an opportunity to process the emotional experience that it's been. And I actually just had a conversation with a client in the last week around her very beautiful birth that went almost exactly as she had planned it and envisioned it. And when her midwife came to her and created this very safe space that, surrounded her, and they were quiet, alone together in a room, and she felt safe, and she felt like she was just, anyways, she felt wonderful. And then the question came up, I'm ready, from her midwife, I'm ready if you are, to discuss your birth journey. And tears just flooded. And she was like, where is this coming from? I thought so it's not about a traumatic versus an in-traumatic birth that goes as planned. It's really, allowing this space to be contained, to move through the processing and just understanding and relating to, this experience that you've had at a very deep level.
Yeah,
Anyways.
so true. It's so true, because I've noticed, like, when I'm doing Closing the Bones, they'll always release something, whether it's a happy story, or whether it's a sad story, or whether it's a traumatic one, or whether it's a funny one. It will get released, and it's amazing, because 9 out of 10 times the new mother says, I've never shared that with anyone before, Arooj. And I'm like, oh, okay. So it's so nice that it's such a safe space. Closing the Bones is body work. It is a physical, hands-on body work. It starts off with a massage. So it starts off with a massage, a warm oil massage on the arms and the legs, ankles, knees, so all your joints. And then the mother wears something loose, and she lays down on a wool material, which I have behind me. So she lays down on this type of wool material. Wool, we only use, all our binds are thick wool, and that is just to try and keep that heat in, because of the cold state that she'll be in post-birth. So we use these wool materials to close her and keep any of that heat inside, and we keep closing her from head to toe. And there is a special technique to it, and it's not easy. It is a full-on hands-on ceremony, but it's so rewarding, because at the end of the day, she feels like she has been respected. And I know that when I had this done at 7 months postpartum, I felt so honored. I felt so respected that there are people here spending their time trying to close my bones, trying to close my joints. And I actually felt, some sort of pressure release on my hips, which was amazing. Because obviously, as you're all aware, your hips open while you're pregnant. You have loose ligaments, your posture changes, your pelvic floor. It affects so much things post birth. And it was amazing to have this therapist, or this therapy, or this ceremony, whatever you would like to call it, of this practitioner or this traditional doula just working on my body. It was a whole 360 experience, because you don't just work on the body, you work on the emotions that your new mom releases. The surrounding, traditionally, I actually had some, traditionally the room, I don't know if I'll be able to show you, I'll put the screen down a bit, but you have, like, the room is filled with Moroccan natural resin, fragranced. So, you don't have your air fresheners on, whatever. You have this scent, you put this scent on, and this scent fills up the room a little bit with smoke. And that is natural resin.
Amazing.
From the tree, as you would get.
Wow.
Yeah. And, it smells amazing. And it's just having that small ceremony, that 2 hours or that 2.5 hours lengthy ceremony, just so she feels respected, so the doula can do her body work on her. She's warmed up with oils. It's just amazing.
So share with us a resource that our women here can check in with to learn more, to get some of these products. And you mentioned that the blankets aren't available anywhere but Morocco, but something, similar that may work. Is there a resource that you can recommend? And
Yeah.
both for the products and as well as for like further education around this.
Yeah. So you can go. So these are, I couldn't find any of these anywhere. I couldn't even find anything similar in the UK. But the lady that I trained from is called Layla B. And I don't know if any of you have heard of Layla, but she's on Facebook. She has her website. I'll post her link below. And if you wanted to know a lot more, if you wanted to know more about Moroccan closing the bones or any sort of Moroccan traditions, oh yeah, I can see from the chat people know her. Yeah,
Yay.
she is who I learned from, and she is who I went when I went to Morocco, is where I went to learn from.
Oh, great.
So I'll put her details down below.
Okay, perfect.
In the chat, yeah. But the products, unfortunately, I've not been able to find them anywhere in the UK, or I've just got them from Morocco. Sorry. Oh, I thought that was somebody. Yeah, I've not been able to find them, so I've just bought them directly from Layla.
Okay, great. And then, you know what, that actually just made me think of another question that I meant to ask in the beginning. Can everyone, I believe everyone has the capability of hitting the button to raise your hand, but I would love to hear from you guys, from the participants, who is brand new, as I consider myself, to closing the bones. Raise your hand if that's you. Dana, Eileen, awesome. Okay, and then for the rest of you, I would assume then that you've had some experience with it. Perhaps you practice it. So type over in the chat box. Sorry, I hear some background noise and make sure everyone's muted. Type over in the chat box for those of you that are familiar with it, or those of you that have experienced it yourself, or use it as a therapy with your own clients. Let us know over in the chat box. I would love to hear that. So Arooj, another question that I have for you is around timing. Actually, I have a couple of questions, and really they're just nuts and bolts questions. But the first one is timing. And a lot of women, well, a couple of women that I've supported as their postpartum doula, there's this idea that the closing the bone ceremony is best used right around, you know what, I'm blanking on what this exact time was, but I believe it was around 2 months. But you've mentioned that you experienced it at 7 months postpartum, and you talked a little bit about the great benefit of using the immediate postpartum period. So can you just shed some light on that, on the most ideal time, and if there is an ideal time to use this?
So traditionally in Morocco, that's one of the questions that I actually ask the midwives myself, because, what if there is a mom that's 2 months postpartum and she's interested, or what if there's a mom that's 8 months postpartum and she's thinking, oh, what is it? In Morocco, the midwives offer this sort of practice to their new mamas in their community for up to a year postpartum. Ideally, obviously, in the first 42 days would be ideal, just because of that relaxing hormone. Obviously, if you have the high amount of relaxing hormone, things can go back into place a bit more easier if we're pulling and we're offering you closing the bones. So closing the bones isn't something you cannot have if you're 8 months postpartum. You can actually have it up to a year postpartum, and that's something what I offer as well, because I have seen, and I've got reviews of moms that have had benefits, that have felt benefits after 1 year postpartum. Yeah. So I would say there is no ideal time, but traditionally, first 42 days, ideal, what they say is 3 times in your first week, or 3 times in your first 42 days, or up to a year. And It's something that I also offer up to a year. And when we have our C-section mamas here in the UK, obviously we wait until their scar has healed and they fully feel like they're able to have somebody, that close to them doing body work. So usually it would be around the 2 months mark for them. But generally it would be in the first 42 days, or up to the first year.
Yeah.
Yeah, but the closing ceremony is traditionally known to like help hormonal balances after birth, just just out of that respect of the new mama releasing anything, any sort of what she's been feeling, just getting it out there, because sometimes we have a bit of an imbalance inside us when we keep something so deep, and we're not able to share it because we don't feel like we have anybody to listen, or we don't have an expert in that field, so it's quite hard. But it helps with hormonal imbalance. I've noticed closing the bones has helped people with unwanted discharge and clots post-birth, supporting the womb area to be clean, because closing the bones traditionally, Moroccan closing the bones traditionally, is followed by womb steaming. So that's why it takes 2.5 hours. So the mom would have her ceremony, and then she'd be supported to stand up and sit on a yoni stool or a womb steam stool, or in the bath, or whatever the situation is. She would have her wool blankets around her. She would have a Moroccan cozy mint cup of tea. Mint is a Moroccan postpartum herb that they use. It's not something that I offer my mothers, but traditionally that is what they offer. And yeah, she would have her womb steaming, which would help with cleansing of the womb area. And closing the bones, it also offers posture support. I've noticed a lot of moms with aches and pains in their hips and not being able to stand up straight. So when you are offering them closing the bones, it helps with that. We work a lot on the abdominal area, so that would help with diastasis recti, which is obviously very common when you are growing a baby in pregnancy. And there is just it's so amazing to lay down, have your massage done, your postpartum massage with a really hot warming oil to warm you internally, and then somebody physically close all them joints head to toe, and then put you on the side and then close you again head to toe. It is not like a 60-minute massage at your local hotel. It is nothing like that. It's a very, very sacred, honored space. And
It's beautiful.
Yeah, it's very phenomenal. It really is.
It's beautiful. Is it traditionally, is it practiced with just one practitioner, or is it usually multiple hands that are on?
So when I was in Morocco, I had 2 midwives closing me. So one was this side and one was that side, and they would pull the material. But and then my second one, I had one midwife. So we got taught both ways. We got taught, if you do have another practitioner, this is how you can work together. If you was on your own, this is how you would do it on your own.
Beautiful. Beautiful. There's a couple questions that came in. One is, I have not officially offered the service through my business, but teach about the ritual in my classes. I've heard of the dangers of practicing without formal training. Can you speak to this?
Yeah, I would say that's a really big one, because this week only, I know we're only on Thursday, but this week I've had 2 of my clients that I was teaching how to Benkung bind, and they both had, funnily enough, it's this week, but they both had therapists or practitioners, postpartum practitioners, that offer services, and they're not qualified. And it actually ended up with them having bruises on them. And so it's because people want to offer these sort of services, but they don't actually have any formal training. I would highly recommend that you don't do this if you don't have any formal training, because you need to know exactly how to pull. You need to know exactly what material to use and where the material should go. This is not something that you can, for me personally, it's not something you can even learn online. It's something that you have to learn hands-on with a practitioner with experience. So yeah, there are dangers of practicing this without formal training. Yes, I would say so, because you could damage a new mom's body, especially when all her organs are out of place. Her hips aren't aligned, her pelvic isn't aligned, and you know, for example, a practitioner goes and tries to close her bones, how would you do that? If you didn't, if you don't actually know, how would you do that? So no, I would highly recommend that if you are going to get this done by a practitioner, that you make sure that they are qualified and they have the right accredited qualifications.
Yeah, that's beautiful and so important. I'm curious if there's something, and it may have nothing to do with this actual ceremony of using the cloths and the fabrics, using the ceremony on women, but is there something, a tool that you can offer to our viewers around what they or their clients may find is beneficial in the postpartum period? And I mean, you've spoken to so much as far as teas and oils and using heat. So is there just like one little piece of that they can just play with themselves?
Yeah. One thing when you say that to me, Jenna, there's one thing that's drawing me to say this, but I'm assuming that a lot of you already know about this, but it's not a tea and it's not not a tea, sorry. It's not a tea and it's not a herb, but it is the Benkung bind. If you don't have a closing the bones practitioner around, or it's not a service that you're feeling comfortable to offer, then grab hold of a Benkung bind, which I'm hoping is available worldwide, and use that, because that, like I have my Benkung bind actually out there in front of me, because I've just had a client before this call, but that offers the similar sort of concept, but just on that abdominal area. And using that material and binding yourself through the Benkung method helps keep that heat in. So a lot of the things that we want to do postpartum is to increase the heat level that we've got inside us, as you're aware. And I would really highly suggest, if you can't get hold of anything to do with closing the bones, it would, your next best bet would be the Benkung bind. Yeah.
I just put a link over in, oops, I meant to make that, hang on, let me try that again, to everyone. Okay. It's a long link. I don't know why it's so long, but it's a link to The Art of Wellness, I believe. She has a store on Etsy, and she has really, really beautiful wraps and pieces of fabric for the Benkung bind, if anyone is not familiar and not already set up for using this themselves.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Okay, and then Susan asked, actually there's been a couple of questions that have come to me around using this traditional practice and considering, the important conversation that's taking place throughout society around cultural appropriation.
Yeah. I knew you was going to hit on that. I was waiting for it. Yeah. There is a lot of conversation. I am not Moroccan myself. I am not. But when it comes to appropriation, I don't want to disrespect this, because that is their culture. This is their traditions. This is not my cultural. It's not my culture. So I have to respect their method, and that's why everything I use is Moroccan. And that's how I respect it. Where have you gone? Sorry, my screen froze.
We can hear you.
So everything I use is Moroccan, down to the resin, or down to an oil, or the actual bind itself. And the method that I use is a traditional method as well. I don't try or don't disrespect any of the cultural appropriation, because this is their, like, how do I put it? This is their traditional ancestry tradition, and I don't want to change it. And especially being one of the few in the UK that know about Moroccan postpartum care, it's something that I definitely don't want to change. it is very hard, obviously, if I have seen some people from other traditions just change it a little bit. You might get, for example, a bed, like a massage bed, and try and bind the lady on there. For me, that would be a little bit appropriating, just because it's not the actual method. So I do everything according to how it should be. And if anyone does have a question of, oh, who did you learn it from, I'm really happy to send you the link, and you can go and find out the actual source, which is Layla, which I've already said, but I will put her details on below if anyone wants to ask. But I can see the question Susan's asked as well. Do you have advice to white doulas who want to offer these services and remain respectful and authentic to the origins? Yeah, the advice would be, if you decide that you want to do Moroccan closing the bows and offer Moroccan techniques, then you use all the Moroccan stuff and do it the Moroccan way. If you want to do, the Mexican way, you use their, obeisas, you use their materials, and you do it their way. We don't, unfortunately, try to change the way just to make it a bit easier for us, because I like to give my clients the actual feel of how it's meant to be. So the right music is put on. So when I'm doing closing the bones, I put traditional music on. This fragrance that I use to scent up the room, I ask them before I use it, like, do you have any allergies? Would you like me to put this on? This is how it smells, etc. So my advice would be, it's not impossible if you're a white doula. It's not impossible if you're an Asian doula like me. It's not possible. It's not impossible at all. You just have to sort of respect the culture and their way. There might be things that you don't agree on, which is fine, but you can just cut that out.
Beautiful.
I hope that makes sense. Yeah, Susan, I hope that answers your question and makes some sort of sense, but it is possible.
She says, yes, thank you. That was beautiful. Thank you. One more question that I have around this practice, unless I don't want to change subjects, if anyone else wants to ask anything over in the chat box, or you're also welcome, anyone that's on here, to unmute yourself at any point. Pretty much everyone has a still image and has your videos turned off, which I totally get because it's 7 a.m. But if anyone does have any questions right now, please feel free to, again, either type over in the chat box or unmute yourself, and I'll give you a moment. All right, while you're thinking about the questions that you may have, one last question that I have for you is, I read an article recently around the great benefits of using the closing the bones ceremony for following miscarriage. Can you talk to us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so that is one question that one of the other students that we were students at the time asked one of the midwives, because we actually learn all this from midwives, because in Morocco, midwives and doulas are the same thing. There is no doula, there is no midwife. They are one, and they are called kablas, so they are just one. So we asked the midwives at the time, is there something that you offer to women that have miscarried? The answer is yes, because of the emotional side of it, and also because her body has gone through something. She might not have gone through the full extent if she's lost her baby in her first trimester, but she has gone through something, and we still need to respect the fact that this mom was a mom for whatever length of period of time, if you want to call it, or was a mom that's just lost her baby. We still kind of need to respect that, and we still need to offer her closing the bones, and it's up to her if she wants it. Some women say no. I've had some women that have declined it because that motherhood chapter is closed, and they're like, no, I can't, which is fine. And others have said, yes, my body deserves that sort of healing. So it varies on the mom, but it is offered, yes.
Beautiful. Thank you. And there was one question on asking if you could speak to the cost and the length of your certification process.
Yeah, so I did my certification a while back now, so it's been quite a while. I'll put the link in the chat because I don't know how much the cost is now. I don't know if it's changed. Um, I know that obviously with lockdown and everything that we've gone through, I'm not sure if Layla is offering anything, any retreats or like any sort of community. So you can have a look on her website and see if there's anything there that you want. Yeah.
Perfect. And this is a question that you may or may not be comfortable answering directly. But around how you charge and like what your, I mean, maybe you could discuss different packages that you put together in offering this service.
Yeah, so basically, I'm based in Sheffield in the UK. I'm like so you'll almost likely know London. I'm like 2.5, 3 hours away from London. So I have a lot of clients that are either based in London or based in like everywhere, and I can't go traveling every day. So unfortunately, how it works with me is if you are interested in closing the bones, you'd get in touch, either that's via Facebook, website, or Instagram, or through my email. We'd have a 15-minute chat, and after we've spoke, if you still feel like you'd like to continue, then I would basically arrange some dates and come out to you, because I've had people from Scotland, from Wales inquire, and I just can't get out to some people. So it's not something that is on my website directly. So if you were to go on my website, you'd see birth, you'd see a section on birth, and you'd see you'd see a section on postpartum. It's at the moment on the postpartum section, there is no closing the bones. There is Ayurvedic care packages, but once you click on the packages, there is an add-on service for closing the bones. So it's not something that I offer to everybody, because I just can't travel. It wouldn't make sense for me, and it wouldn't make sense for them. But also, if you are interested in closing the bones only, I never turn down a mom. I haven't so far, although it's not even on my website. I've had various people from Instagram just message and say, oh, I'm 3 weeks postpartum, I'm really interested in closing the bones, and they know that if they go on the website it's not there. But I will never, if I can get to you, I'll get to you, because it's such a sacred tradition. And after I had Asia, which is my first daughter, I really, really struggled to find someone to do this for me. The lady that I found was 4 hours away, and at the time it just wasn't possible. So after I had Asia, and I had just a normal GP checkup. I'm not sure what you guys get in your country, but in the UK we get a 6-week GP checkup, which I felt was not good enough for me, because I have gone through this home birth. I was a new mom. I did not know what to expect. Yes, breastfeeding was going excellent, but I had all these other questions. And when I went for my GP checkup, it was more of, how's the baby doing? How is everything? And I was a bit like, oh, what about me?
Yeah.
I'm just a new mom. And then I really looked into all like postpartum doulaing. I looked into what sort of support is out there. And I found closing the bones, and I found Ben Kung binding, and I found womb steaming. And I went, and I think I was I've already said, but I think I was about 7.5, 8 months post. And I went to learn, and I came back, and I felt like after I had the ceremonies done to me, I felt almost like a trauma was released. And that's a very emotional thing for me to say, because I also don't share this with anybody and everyone, but it was a bit like a massive void inside me was filled. I was respected, I felt honored, I had body work done. And this is why I trained, because I really, really believe that no matter where you give birth, no matter how you give birth, whether you're a C-section mom or whether you've had a home birth or whether you've had some sort of free birth, you really need healing after birth. And closing the bones for me was a whole 360, from spiritual, from emotional, and from physical. So it really covered everything for me. And that's why I am so passionate about it. But because I can't go out to everyone, and I'm just in a little city, I don't offer it like just, you can't just book it just like that. We have to have a conversation to arrange it. but how much do I charge for this service? Okay, you ready, guys? I charge $297 for each session. Yeah, because
Right.
because it takes 2.5 to 3 hours, including your womb steam session. And I feel like even if you divide the amount by the hours, that just works for me.
Absolutely. And I think it's important to honor our, our expertise and to honor our time. And also I have this conversation with so many of the women that I work with and getting started with their businesses, whether it's a ceremony such as this that they're offering, or, just this very straightforward postpartum doula services. It's one thing to begin your business at a lower rate so that you can get the experience and so that you can begin to build your network, which I think is an important tool. But then once the ball's rolling, you have to price yourself appropriately so that you don't reach burnout, which is raise your hand again, everyone, for those of you that may have experienced some degree of burnout, especially for those of us that are, maybe have other careers and this is a side thing. We have children. It's life, right? And so in order to honor the time and the energy that we spend really doing what we do and what we love, what we're passionate about, what we're experts at, and what's going to bring benefit to so many women, we have to price ourselves appropriately, and also not only price ourselves appropriately, although that's an important piece of it, an important aspect, but create strong, really firm, solid boundaries around the commitment that we make to being available to others. We have to also remember to keep our own cups full, and our own health, our health, and of course our family's health and well-being as a number one foundational basis before we can go out and really be effective in the work that we share with other women.
Yeah, it's so true, Jenna, because it's really hands-on and it's really emotional, but it's also serving. For me, it's also giving back as well. It's not only just a ritual that I'm passionate about, because for me it's a mom's needs. It's a need, and if a mom comes to me and she's struggling, that's fine, we can work something out, but the price that I charge is the price that I feel valued at for offering that service. Yeah, so you're right, we have to also keep our cups full, but I've not had a complaint so far, so we're all good so far. But I've just seen a comment, 10 years in, a calling, not a job. No, it's definitely not a job. It's definitely a type of serve for the community. And I think that during your postpartum, I've had so many birth clients that we've done so well. They've been educated and they know, like, they've made informed decisions and they've done everything, and then at birth we stop, and and then they come back to me 3 weeks later because they're like, you didn't say anything about postpartum. I didn't know what to expect. The list goes on. But how, we postpartum doulas are there for you. And I say that to all my birth clients. Like, after birth, I'm there for you as a postpartum doula. Just reach out, because it is such a daunting time. You have a newborn, you're trying to learn breastfeeding, you're also trying to find the best sanitary towels, and you're trying to keep your house running, and you're doing everything. And we're not in other countries, for example, like Morocco, where a mom does have the opportunity to have 42 days rest, because she'll have her mother or her mother-in-law look after the baby. Obviously the baby will be with the mum when she needs breastfeeding, but the mum majority of the time will have these warm foods. She'll have she'll be well rested, and that's their cultural thing. But in the UK we don't have that. But I definitely don't know anyone that has that in the UK. It's just a six-week GP checkup, and I don't think that's good enough at all. And I will always say that, because it's just not for how much we go through. But that's why there are these pockets of people that you can find that offer services to help you heal. And I think that if you can get in touch with Ayurvedic doulas or any sort of postpartum doulas, Benkung binders, closing the bone ceremony therapists, osteopath, chiropractors, pelvic floor therapists, get in touch, because all that is your village. For me, that's your village. If you don't have, if you don't have a mother or a mother-in-law or any sort of support mechanism, or your friends, you don't have anyone, get in touch with your practitioners, because you never need to be alone in this field. In the postpartum phase, you never need to be alone. It's just that unfortunately not a lot of us were aware. Well, I was one. I was a victim in this because I wasn't aware. After my first birth, I had no idea what was going to happen. It was a complete shock to the system. But now I know who my village is. I've got all these beautiful practitioners as friends, and I'm a doula and myself, and I'm also a mom. So I know exactly what people go through during the postpartum phase, but we are here to help you heal. And if I can't help you heal, I will offer you or point you in the right direction.
So beautiful. Thank you, Arooj, for your, just the life that you bring to these services and to this important period for women around the world. You're definitely not alone in the UK with it being, it's very much alive here, even where I am in Los Angeles. The small birthing community that I'm immersed in, it's growing and expanding and becoming more available, these services and this approach to care following birth. But for the wider, more mainstream society, I think across the world, it looks quite a bit different. So for each of us, and whether we're just getting started today or we've been doing this work for 25 years, so much gratitude for contributing to normalizing really this, as you described it, like this shock that our bodies go through following delivery, and hopefully filling the gap so that we're not left in that state to to navigate it and to get through it alone.
I can see Susan just wrote a comment, and she's absolutely spot on.
Yes.
And I'm so sorry about that, and it makes me so sad, but it is so common, and I am one of those moms that also went through that exact comment what she's writ. But that's why we do need these ceremonies, and they are worth investing in. And if you can learn it, yes, it would be amazing if you can learn it so you can serve back, which is what I've done, and that was my intention. Because closing the bones, it has its emotional benefits, but it also has its physical benefits, because you are very raw, you are open, you are cold after birth, your hips widen, there is so much going on that there can be, I can list a whole list. But closing the bones ritual, having that, even having that peace of mind where you're just laying down and somebody's doing that body work. How many of us as new moms run to the toilet to have a minute spare, to just have a minute to ourselves? Can you imagine 2 hours just laying down peacefully, having the traditional music on, that traditional smell, getting closed, having that body work done, knowing that my body's in a state of healing, it's so true. What she just said is so true. Thanks, Susan.
Well, thank you. And thank you guys so much for being here. We're going to start to wrap it up as we're moving closer to the hour. I want to make sure if there's any last questions, again, you can feel free to type it in the chat or go ahead and unmute yourself. Arooj, why don't you type into the chat your contact info? So your website, your Instagram handle, whatever you'd like to share with people.
Okay, I will do. I'll also add Layla's who I've been taught from. So if there are any of you guys wanting to do closing the bones or be a practitioner, you can check her out.
Beautiful.
But thank you for having me.
Oh, sorry. I joined a bit late, so I apologize. But I've heard such beautiful conversations towards the end. I was wondering, is there going to be a link to the recording? So I'd love to check out the beginning of this session.
Yeah, I am going to, for everyone that's registered for the call, which is each of you as you're here live, I'm going to send out an email at some point today with the link so that you guys can go back and watch it again and have access to it for sure. And I'll also include it, this video will be posted through my YouTube account. I'll post in the comments below the video the links that are shared here. All right. Thank you again, Arooj, so much for just confiding in us and sharing from your heart this morning, this evening for you. Wherever you are in the day, for any of us that are here right now and here later on listening to the recording, thank you for spending your time with us. We're so grateful. Check out Arooj and Ayurvedic Mamas. There's just still so much more just goodness amongst this entire global birth community, and I'm grateful for each of you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Jenna, and thank you to everyone who's tuned in. I really appreciate it.
All right, sending you all so much love. Happy Thursday, or wherever you're at as you're listening to this, and we'll connect again soon.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.